A very warm welcome to StudyIQ. I am Prashant Pavani. I hope you all are doing good, my dear friends. Today is 28th October. It's Sunday today. I'm sure you all are enjoying your Sunday, isn't it? Yes, of course, we have to because it revitalizes us for the next week, isn't it? Today, we don't have articles to go through. Today, we don't have important editorials to go through, but I have got a very important topic for you guys. It's about health, and I'm sure that by the end of this discussion, our thinking, our perspective about health will change forever. There are so many things that we are going to learn from today's discussion. Right, so generally we take this thing as reality that poor live in unhygienic conditions. They don't have access to proper health care, right? These are the 2 points, and because of this, right, poor people are prone to diseases. That's what the common understanding is. But a professor from Stanford University. Stanford is one of the best university in the world, one of the best in the world, and you find Stanford, and research by Stanford is quite, you can say, it's authentic and it's very prestigious university, of course. So you have one professor of biological sciences, neurology and neurological sciences. His name is Robert M. Sapolsky, and he wrote an article in a magazine called Scientific American. And in this article, he is giving us altogether, a very interesting new perspective as to why the poor in the world suffer from ill health. A very important question, of course. According to Sapolsky, ill health goes beyond lack of access to healthcare and living in disease-prone neighborhoods. That's a very interesting finding. When it comes to, access to healthcare, it's not the main thing. Or lack of access to healthcare is not the main thing because of diseases that are prevalent in poor societies, in poor countries. And the second thing is living in unhygienic, disease-prone neighborhoods is also not the main reason why so many poor people are suffering from various different diseases. So I'm sure you are curious now what exactly is the reason. The thing is, higher average income levels in countries do not guarantee better health. Let me throw some light on this one. Higher average income we are talking about, right? So if a country's average income is higher, that does not mean that that particular country will have or the people living in that particular country or society will have top quality of healthcare. If there are so many countries out there, like say for example USA, right? Access to healthcare is easily available compared to countries like India and other countries. But if we go through USA, then we find that, if we go through the data of USA, then we find that there are so many people out there in USA. They have access to healthcare, but they are also suffering from various different diseases, right? So countries that have higher or high per capita spends on healthcare should have, USA is a very good example. They should have a lower incidence of health issues, but that's not the case as well. So this general belief that if I have access to healthcare, or if I have access to hospital, then I'm going to be fine. No, that's not always the case. The latest studies show that socio-economic, this is the key here, right? Socio-economic inequality, the main culprit here is inequality, is the major determinant of ill health among poor. It's all about feeling poor rather than being poor, right? Again, it's all about feeling poor rather than being poor, and this has been proved by Nancy Adler, again a very reputed University of California psychologist. Nancy Adler's research has shown that ill health is not so much about being poor, but it's more about feeling poor. It gives you a sense of inferiority. Then you have Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. Both of them, they wrote this book called The Spirit Level, and in this spirit level they are talking about this thing that a society or a country where you have these disparities, right? You find more of health and social problems like depression, schizophrenia, drug addiction, obesity, etc. I'll give you a small example of obesity, right? What happens is that when our breathing pattern changes, when we are in stress, our breathing pattern changes, and generally when we are feeling not so good, or when we are feeling this inferiority, inferiority complex or things like that, then our breathing pattern changes, and our body or mind will send a signal to our body that the person is in stressful situation. So whatever you eat will be stored as a fat, because that's how our bodies, our mind's main job is survival. It does not care about your happiness or what is right and what is wrong for you. Survival is the most important thing. It's the most automatic thing. So when you are in stressful situation, you are basically in a fat, you can say fat saving or storing mode. So it's just a small example of this thing, that when we are not feeling right, so when we are suffering from this inferiority or feeling poor sort of thing, then there are so many negative, or you can say bad, you can say hormones that are released by our mind. We'll talk about this thing as well, right? So we have USA again on our table as an example. USA is one of the countries with the highest levels of income inequality, right? One of the highest, because you have in USA 1% of population in the USA owning more than 24% of country's wealth, and USA's wealth is totally different from India's wealth. It's their rich are super rich. Our rich are there as well, but we have a handful of them. They have so many of them. So inequality of any kind, particularly when it comes to money, it magnifies the impression. That's what this research has proved. And then it generates this feeling of superiority. If a person is rich, he or she will feel superior, and when a person is poor, he or she will feel inferior. And here this whole game starts from our mind, and they are always concerned about how, and generally speaking, I have seen this thing that it's very difficult, but we have to get rid of this disease of always concerned about how people will judge us. Whether we have this type of face or that type of face, or whether we look good in this or that, it doesn't really matter, to be honest, right? A day will come when you'll realize this thing as well. But still, let me tell you that it's fine if someone calls you fat or too chubby or too skinny. It's just, don't worry about it at all. You are good as you are, right? So that's the most. We are enough. Whatever we are enough. That's the main thing to remember. So because of this mentality, right, there are poor people who are suffering from this health issue. And Ichiro Kawaji from Harvard University, he terms this thing as a social pollutant or a social pollution. That's the thing, right? Social pollution is one of the main reason behind so many poor people are suffering from various different diseases, and then you have this higher number of addictions and other things. So today's discussion is basically a wake-up call for all of us, right? Particularly for policymakers. Now, I'll give you a small example here. Recently, we have launched this J, right? PMJAY, that is Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, providing insurance cover to poor people and poor household. Very good scheme, no doubt, because it's not about, so far we have not talked about this thing, but today's discussion is going to be very important for you guys, because we have launched this scheme, right, just in the recent past, and there are high chances that you will face questions based on this thing, on health sector, on health, public health and things like that. So here you have to remember that it's not just about providing healthcare facility to poor. It's also, in background, this PMJAY is battling with your this social pollutant or this feeling poor sort of thing as well. Because when a family will have insurance, when they have this protection, at least they will feel secure, and their stress hormones will be relaxed a little bit, isn't it? Their brain will relax, that they have something, they have a safety net that will hold them. So I think the most important thing about this sort of schemes is this thing. Of course, we need more hospitals. Of course, we need better facilities. Of course, we need Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. We need a proper hygiene environment. All these things are there. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the fact that inequality is one of the main driver of ill health in our society or in any other society. So this is the thing. This is the thing that this research is this research has proved. And I think whenever you talk about public health, whenever you talk about making India healthy, I think if you talk about inequality, and if you add a couple of things that we have discussed today in your answer or in your interview, I'm sure it's going to add more weight in your answer, because everyone is going to talk about supply of medicine, everyone is going to talk about more facilities, more doctors, more nurses, more hospitals, more, this and that. But I don't think so that many people will talk about this inequality and this particular research. So do let me know how was it, this one. And that's everything as far as our special topic is concerned. Now we'll head towards a news item, latest news. But before that, I would like to introduce all of you to our pen drive and tablet courses for various different exams. We have different pen drive and tablet courses. They are designed by best faculties of our country. And to find out more about it, do check out StudyIQ.com. In case if you have any question or queries about it, you can feel free and give us a call on the numbers that you can see on your screen. Again, dear friends, I do find messages from you guys, not too many, but one or two every day. You need some information about it. Please, I'm not the right person. The thing is, I am busy with my things, but we have proper dedicated team, and this team will help you with each and every course. If you want to know more about, say for example, a particular RBI grade course, then give us a call on this number, and we have people who will look after you. Faculties won't help you that much with it, because faculties are, more about, they are spending their time in research and other things and what they are going to bring next and things like that. So I hope things are clear, right? So let's move on to news item. Now, political situation is a bit tricky in Sri Lanka, and India is definitely going to, India's eyes and ears are open, and we are observing it very closely, very keenly, because Mahinda Rajapaksa is going to be the new Prime Minister of Sri Lanka. And this man here, he was president of Sri Lanka, and he is pro-China. He is a little bit not that happy with India, and he is pro-China. So this is something that we are concerned about. And China stepping into or coming closer to India via Sri Lanka is a matter of concern for our security. It may not look that big at present, but if you look at it from strategic point of view, once you allow China to build a military base here in Sri Lanka, then it becomes nearly impossible for Sri Lanka to get rid of China, and it becomes a permanent threat, for a very long period of time for our country. So this is the reason why we are a bit concerned about this change of guard in Sri Lanka. Then for new students, you will understand a little bit how things work as far as these appointments are concerned. Of course, I'm going to be very basic, very brief here, that central government has appointed Indian Revenue Service Officer Sanjay Kumar Mishra as Interim Director of Enforcement Directorate. Now, I have a question for you guys. Can you tell me the name of ministry under which this Enforcement Directorate operates, right? So that's your question, one and only question of the day. So it's this one. Now, so you have new Director of Enforcement Directorate, Sanjay Kumar Mishra, and appointments are decided by Appointments Committee of the Cabinet, this sort of important appointments, right? And it is headed by, of course, Prime Minister, and he's going to be a sort of temporary director. So that's interim interim director. And Mr. Mishra has been appointed Principal Chief Director of the ED. He will be the interim director for 3 months or till further orders. So this is how it works. And remember, all these things are sorted by Department of Personnel and Training. Now on your screen you have some info, you can say a deal between India and Mauritius. You can see here Seychelles, right? So these are some island nations in Indian Ocean region, very important from India's security point of view. Now you have this Agalega Island in Mauritius. Back in 2015, when Prime Minister Modi was there in Mauritius, at that point of time we signed an MOU for this project. What we are trying to achieve here is we are trying to build some jetties and rebuild and extend runway and build an airport terminal and things like that. And it is more about India's or Indian Ocean region's security. So it was signed in 2015. It was to the work was going to start from February 2015, and it was going to end in 2021. But this particular project is not that much appreciated by opposition of Mauritius, and it is becoming a bit difficult for the Prime Minister Pravind Jagannath, who is of course Prime Minister of Mauritius. He is finding it difficult to prove why this particular project is important for Mauritius. As far as India is concerned, it's easy to understand that we have one more base here. But why it is important for Mauritius, it's a bit difficult for Mauritius government to explain. So India is observing this whole process in Mauritius as well very keenly, because it was back in this year itself. At the beginning of this year, we got this bad news that we were supposed to develop an island called Assumption Island in Seychelles as our military base, but this was cancelled by Seychelles. So we don't want something similar to take place here in Mauritius. Then you have this few items, not that important, but very quickly we'll go through it. Centre files Rafale deal details in Supreme Court. Then stubble burning numbers are here. It's down what it used to be last year, but still it's not that good. India is home to 2 new gecko species. Now this is a bit important here. We have 2 geckos. First one is a sport-necked day gecko, and the second one is Anai Moody day gecko. So these are the 2 ones, the latest ones. One of them you find it in Agastya Malai, and the other one in Annamalai Hills. And these hills are located in Western Ghats, particularly in the Kerala portion. And IIT Guwahati, they have found a new way of removing oil from water by using aloe vera. Now it may look very simple, but the thing is, when oil spills takes place, the big ships carrying oil, and because of wreckage or something, the oil is everywhere on the surface of this ocean or sea. So it is very damaging for ecosystems. So this sort of things can help us mitigate the risks associated with this oil spills. Then world's smallest optical gyroscope is developed. Now you'd be thinking, like, what's new about it, or what's outstanding about it? The thing is, it's going to provide us a more better way of using those cameras, right? You can see here, this is gyroscope, so it can rotate very freely. So when we have this smallest optical gyroscope, we can stick it in our drones and other devices, or maybe in our future automatic automation cars, right? Artificial intelligence cars, so they can drive themselves and things like that. So we can have this we can fit more cameras and things like that. So in that sense, this one is a small yet important news item. Yesterday I found a question in the Hindi version. A student was not that much sure about Ramsar Convention, so I have explained it in English version, in Hindi version. So I thought, let me throw some light on this thing as well for you guys. So Ramsar is a city in Iran. It was back in 1971. When this thing was adopted. It came into force in 1975, and this Ramsar Convention on Wetlands is about, of course, wetlands, and it's an intergovernmental treaty. 90% plus United Nations UN member states have adopted this wetland treaty or wetland convention, and here wetlands means all those items, right? The definition is very broad. So even your salt pans and reservoirs and rice paddies and fish ponds and your swamps and marshes and so many things, all right? Generally speaking, everything to do with water is part, or we have to save all these ponds and this tanks, and or you can say this salt pans, because one of the main reasons is that wetlands are among the most diverse and productive ecosystems, and if we protect them, then they look after our ecosystem, and they are also an important source of supply of fresh water for human beings. So dear friends, that's everything in today's discussion. This is my FB page and Twitter handle, from where you can get the PDF of today's discussion. Enjoy your Sunday, and God bless you all. I will be eagerly waiting for your opinion on the health topic that we have talked about today, and don't forget to pass your answer on Enforcement Directorate. Thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow early morning. Till then, Jai Hind.